is Good Morning Football. I love it when the four of us are back together and we're live in New York City. Peter Schrager is back from Orlando.
Oh, man, I miss you so much.
O-Town.
I mean, the band.
At NFL Films. It's been a minute.
This is my homecoming. This is it. We're back here in New York City. It's great. Orlando was amazing. The league meeting was amazing. What did we say it was? Odell-lando? That's how it was.
Odell, no.
Odell, no.
That's a little extra, grow a pair. They're, of course, saying, hey, give us a pair of picks in the first round variety for Odell. Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, time for the lead block. Kyle
Lead block.
and Nate Burleson are here. So, after speaking with several general managers and decision makers in Orlando, NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported just yesterday that the Giants would have to be blown away to trade away Beckham. That seems obvious enough. Rappaport said, quote, from what I understand, just talking to teams, figure it's going to be a first-round pick plus. What kind of an offer would you guys think would be okay for Odell? What did you hear down there at the meeting, Shrakes?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not, they're not going to give him away for, a piece of candy bar or something. It's not going to be like that. This is still Odell Beckham. And the Giants are also not going to limit their option and say, he's completely untradeable. Stop calling us. Detach the phones. Right. They'll listen.
Right.
And I will say that teams have been doing their work on him. And I say teams, multiple teams. And that means calling the Giants and seeing, just out of curiosity, what would it take? And then also on the other end, what's the deal with this guy that he would even be available? So that is important to note here, that suddenly you hear one of the greatest players in the NFL, a true rock star, and maybe the most talented wide receiver in the league with the best hands we've seen in years, is even available for anything. What's the rub? I mean, is he a good teammate? Is he a bad teammate? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? And what's he doing in L.A. this offseason? Has he been, behaving, or has he been misbehaving?
Give me the Carfax.
I want to know the Carfax. Give me the Kelly Blue Book.
Give me something.
I need to know the full deal. So these teams on their own are also looking into Odell Beckham, and they're using their work, and they're doing their security stats. Because this trade might not happen, and it might not happen because of the Giants saying that wasn't a good enough offer. It also might not happen for any of these teams because, wait a second, we did our work on Odell Beckham, and he's not necessarily the guy we need on this team.
Yeah, you talked about giving me the Carfax or giving me the Kelly Blue Book. It's funny because as you guys were talking, I wanted to make this different analogy, but I like that, though, because if you're trading Odell to another team, the other team is the dealership. And as we all know, if you're trading the car, the dealership always wins. Sure. So if you're going to give away Odell, you're going to need to get something back in return that's equally as impactful on the field. And that's not the case. I don't care how many picks in this first round, you're not going to get somebody in this draft. I don't care if you go multiple picks, first round, second round, some next year. A guy that has done what he's done without a running game in a New York Giants uniform is not somebody you trade. I don't care what the case is. I grew up trading lunches. I grew up trading shoes and CDs and clothes and kicks. And one thing I know, when you trade something, you have to get something back that makes you just as happy. There is nothing in this draft, and right now that I see, nothing in next year's draft that can replace what Odell has brought to this offense as a wide receiver.
When all these rumors started, Trace, you were in Orlando, and I said, for me, I would think it'd be a first-rounder this year, first-rounder next year, and then you're taking me for ice cream, too. I want a little something extra. Is that, if you throw a playmaker in that, would that be a thing to do?
So that's a great question, and I disagree with the Daily News. I do not want a pair of picks for that. The second that you trade away Odell for draft picks, you're telling your fan base, we're not looking to win this year. Truly, right. You cannot justify to your fan base, we're trying to win a Super Bowl this year. We have a legendary quarterback who's got a couple years left, and we're looking to the future. So, Kate, to your question, my answer would be this. If we're trading with Odell, I want a draft pick and I want a player immediately. Like if I pull some teams out of thin air, if we're doing a deal with the Raiders, I want a first-rounder and Kelechi Osemele. If it's the Jags, I want a first-rounder and Ngakoue. If it's the Chargers, a first-rounder and Melvin Ingram. Because those draft picks, they could be terrible. Facts. They could flop. Never mind are they going to be as good as Odell, which they're not. They could be busts. If I'm trading away my best player, I need a pick and a player, not a pair.
This whole feeling, though, that there's no precedent. Nate, you were on the 2004 Vikings.
Oh, yes.
Randy Moss was arguably the best player at the position in the league, and you guys traded him for what I believe was a fourth
round
and Napoleon Harris. So, Nate, I mean, we can't act like this is so shocking. Sometimes it's time to move on.
Listen, as much as I love Napoleon as a linebacker, the fourth-round draft pick, I can't even remember who that was. I thought it was completely idiotic. And they were looking at me saying, this is your time. And as a wide receiver, you hope that they trade away the number one guy so you can get the shine. I thought to themselves, you're throwing away your organization. You're throwing away the future. And I don't care who you brought in. Here's the thing. Every person that came in after at the wide receiver position was forever compared to Randy Moss. Troy Williamson, God bless him, had speed for days. I mean, he could run at an Olympic rate. And still, when he came in, he was under fulfilling expectations because he wasn't Randy Moss. So you're trading away Odell. And all right, we can go X's and O's all day long, and we can bore you guys with numbers and put up a board about what Odell has done. That's perfectly fine.
It's also not about the numbers with this.
That's true. It's not about the numbers. I'm glad you said that, because when it comes to Odell and his importance to this organization in this city, it's not about the numbers, it's not about touchdowns. It's also about putting butts in seats. That's a different type of number. So if you ask anybody, what are you looking forward to the most next year with the New York Football Giants? Occasionally you might hear somebody say defense. You might hear somebody say Eli. You might say, you know what? I'm looking forward to seeing what Sherman does. New coach, new system, new team, that's fine. But every person, every single fan that loves New York, forget about New York fans, every single person that loves football is going to say, I want to see Odell Beckham back on the field. Now that right there, along with his numbers, that's worth keeping.
I think it is about the numbers. I'm not the numbers guy.
You're talking about money numbers?
No.
No, you're talking about
I'm talking about pure production.
Pure production,
We saw the Giants last year without Odell, all right? We don't like to get numb to stats. Guys, we're talking about he's too good to get rid of. I don't need to sit here and revel in numbers other than to say his importance to the team and his production. You can't replace that. There's no replacement. Sterling Shepard's going to do that. Oh, Brandon Marshall's going to do that. They're going to draft a rookie. No one is doing that. Right. I don't like to go to numbers until now. When they're that good, you can't replace it.
So why are they doing this? Why are they listening to offers? Why are they waiting to be blown away? The Giants.
I think they're sick of some of the stuff. I truly do. And he's going to be crazy expensive. And I also think...
So this whole thing is, I'm about to turn the car around. Like, be quiet back there. You think this is an entire just message-sending bluff by the Giants?
I don't know what else it could possibly be.
There's no way they're getting rid of him.
Okay, is the car going to crash if I don't do this?
And this year is a car wreck because he doesn't have a contract. He's playing. That's dangerous.
Look, we're warning you, but it's also, hey, wait, if this is what we're dealing with now, what happens with he still wants to get paid?
Yes.
He's saying, I want quarterback money.
No training
I'm not going to be at training camp.
What happens when he gets paid? All that.
All of that.
Will we hear from Odell, do you think? Does it even matter what his opinion is on this? Does he love being a New York Giant? Should I even care if he loves being a New York Giant if I'm a Giants fan?
Well, look, there was a report in the Daily News that I'm not going to confirm or deny that he's living in L.A. and that he told multiple Rams players would love the opportunity to be a Ram.
Matt Page said, I love L.A. just yesterday.
I love L.A. I mean, if that's out there, and a lot of people like L.A. Right. And when you're hearing that the front office is, no person is untradeable and all that stuff, your feelings can get hurt, untouchable. And
for sure.
Maybe he too wants to start anew. It's going to be interesting because the Giants have this transcendent talent, and he's unbelievable. But the Giants franchise is the New York Football Giants. And is one person bigger than the New York Football Giants? And is he even saying, I'm bigger than that? I just don't know where this is headed with these two. And the more and more this drags on, and the more stories, the more headlines that aren't being denied, it makes me think it's more likely that something actually might happen.
And here's the thing. I don't care if he loves being a New York Football Giant. I don't care if people say, you know what, I need a player to be loyal to me, because loyalty is out the window. And when you have the front office, GM, owners, coaches talking about no one's untouchable and, we're fielding offers, that right there, it sets the tone. And here's the thing. I said this before. When all this conversation started, all this narrative, people talking out loud, when you start doing that, like Schrager said, players get in their feelings immediately. So looking to play somewhere else, it becomes more realistic than ever. It's not like when you first get there and you say, you know what, I'm going to bleed, I'm going to cry, I would die for this team. That's what every rookie thinks, because you're so invested in the team that invested in you. The moment they start talking about what you're doing off the field, your injuries, and how much they don't want to pay you, that's when your love starts to leave and the business starts to set in, and you start thinking like a businessman and not a football player.
If he would get traded, Schrags, would they have to extend them?
Ian said that he wouldn't take the field without an extension. I'm not sure if it's the right place. If Odell, and he talked to the team and said, hey, let's get that done, but let's get this deal in place 1 year and then maybe during the season. Because remember Alshon Jeffrey last year was on a 1-year deal, and like 5 weeks in, the Eagles rewarded him. Sure. I can't speak for Odell Beckham. I don't know his agent, Zeke Sendu, at all, so I can't say that he wouldn't take the field without a contract. The ideal situation, of course, they trade him, immediately gets a long-term extension, and away we go. He's on a new team, if you're that new team.
You got to feel for Odell just a little bit, because you just came up an injury. You know you're one of the best in the league. You see Sammy Watkins get broke off. You see Jarvis Landry. They talk about an extension for a while. They don't do it. Tag him and then trade him. So you want your extension. I think that's probably, if you're Odell sitting back, that's what you're thinking about most.
What's a contract, though?
18
not quarterback money.
You sign a deal to play out your contract. It's tough for me to feel sympathy for anyone, because we're all on contract. We play out our contract, and that's just what it is in life.
But then there's times when you feel like you outperform your contract, right? There's times when we have an amazing show, and you say, we're one of the best shows in the world.
Man, you talking about yourself?
I'm talking about I'll talk about, because I still look like a player, and I feel like a player. Sometimes I say, you know what, we have one of the best sports shows in the world. Somewhere down the line, I hope we're appreciated for that.
You don't
That's
quit
how
on
players
talent.
think. That's how players think.
That's right, man.
Honestly, has Odell outperformed his contract?
Yeah, it's a rookie
Sure.
contract.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. I'm just talking from the team perspective that if we do that for Odell, we've got to do it for a million other. You know how it goes.
And is he even the best wide receiver in the league right now? We will get to that, of course. More coming up. I'm going to put you on the spot later, Nate. Get ready. The annual league meeting has come to an end, but not without some major changes to the game, most notably the expansion to the rule prohibiting players from using their helmets to initiate contact. Commissioner Goodell addressed that change yesterday.
Our focus is how to take the head out of the game and make sure that we're using the helmet as protection and is not being used as a weapon. And that's the core of what we're focused on. And I think we made a tremendous amount of progress in that this week. There's a great deal of communication, education that still needs to take place. We'll be doing that over the next 90 days, including going to each club, having players, coaches, medical staff, all hands on deck at each club to be able to go through the changes and make sure everyone's fully aware of them and the basis for those changes. Everyone's enthusiastically behind us and supportive of this. We understand that the players still are, they haven't yet seen all the data that we have, and they haven't seen exactly how we're going to approach this. But I'm confident in the next few months we'll be able to do that. They'll understand, and our game will be in a much better place for it.
Roger Goodell there explaining. Al Riveron did so as well, very eloquently. But players don't seem to be that excited about it on the defensive side, Kyle.
Yeah, the social media, Kate, was popping about players really nervous. No one likes to be told how to do their job and get things taken away from them. If someone came to us and said, you guys cannot speak in dating metaphors anymore, you cannot compare football to 90s NBA, we would freak out, all right? That's not what this is. The fact is, I look at this rule, I think it's going to kind of serve like speed limits do, all right? It's largely to discourage and to penalize in really egregious cases, all right? If it's 35 miles an hour, you're going 38, 39, I get it. The guys who are going 65 are getting flagged, because the fact is, Peter, you were talking to Al Riveron yesterday, and it's pretty explicit. Using the helmet in any way, you cannot flag that, because I'm not exaggerating here. 30 to 40 penalties per game. It's preposterous. So I truly think it's going to be one of those things where the guy doing 40 over the limit who uses his helmet as a weapon, to use Roger Goodell's word, will be flagged. Guys making tackles with their helmet, it's football.
It's an interesting thing. So the response by all the players was, we have to totally change the way we play. We got to. And I saw Chris Spielman on Twitter saying, good, so change it. You're one of the best in the game. Change it. Like, learn how to tackle differently if that's the case. And if you coach and you train them how to not use their helmet, which they're not supposed to do anyway, maybe it's possible. Now, look, you use the helmet sometimes in a play and it's inadvertent and it gets flagged. That's going to stink. And that might cause a big game down the road, a flag like that. But there is a way to make this work. And the message overall from the NFL yesterday in a room with all the owners was, we want to take the helmet out of football.
Yeah.
Which is...
It sounds great.
It sounds great on paper.
I don't think anybody's got changed.
Sounds great in a room with everyone. We'll see how it plays out.
I'll say this. It's going to be tough for the players that have played their whole lives a certain way, which is banging with the helmets, impacting with their hands, and then trying to make a play after that. But for the younger generation, what you have to keep in mind, it's not going to be that hard 20 years from now, because what they're teaching now, there's been a huge initiative for youth football. The NFL has been behind that. Heads up. So these kids who are going to be in the NFL 15 years from now, that's all they're going to know. So this rule isn't going to be that tough of an adjustment. Now, guys that are playing now, some of the guys that bang a little bit more than average, the thumpers, those are the guys that are going to have to adjust. But just like Spielman said, adjust. You're the best in the game. Keep your chin up, keep your eyes up, and adjust.
Nate, there's been so many times we're watching highlights on a Monday. It's nothing. All we do is highlights during the season on Mondays, where you'll go and you'll be like, there's nothing he could have done. Yeah. To the defensive player who's getting flagged or thrown out of the game or even causing an injury, there's nothing he could have done with the momentum of the game, the way it worked out. So how do you answer that? You answer that by telling those guys, those hitters that say, I don't want to change the way I hit. Imagine when your son is on the receiving end of that hit when he's playing in high school. You're going to want that defender to keep his chin up, keep his eyes up, and keep his head out of the chest or head of your son. Really well said by Nate Burleson, by everybody here at the table. More on Odell Beckham Jr., more on the owner meeting fallout, and I don't know. Let's just keep the Odell talk going, because
13.
we gotta come up with some good trades.